Welcome to George Music for All Four Seasons. And today we have another interview with another real Jersey boy from Hoboken, New Jersey, Mr. David Cace. And right now I'm going to turn it over to Anthony Colatrella, who's going to get us going here. Anthony, take it away.
Okay, thanks, George. Well, this past January 17th was the 35th anniversary of the Four Seasons induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I devoted one of my daily Facebook posts to that occasion. But it got me thinking that I remember a person who was actually at that Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So I contacted him and I got some more great information, which I then shared on some more of my posts. George and I got together, though, and said, well, why don't we have that person and do a full interview? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So here we are. Well, I first became aware of this person when I would view the Four Season videos on YouTube. And I would scroll down and read the comments. And often I would notice the name Lynette, Lynnette. And after seeing this several times, I said, gee, how does this woman know so much about the Four Seasons? Well, as it turned out, Lynette was just a Facebook name.
That's my wife.
So, his wife, yes, his wife. So I have found that out, and we are more than happy to have the real person here today. His name is David Cace, C-A-C-E. David is a longtime Four Season fan who became friends with Tommy DeVito. And through that friendship, Dave was able to have a number of great experiences, some of which he's going to share here today. So besides both being great Four Season fans, as George said, David and I both share similar origins, both from New Jersey. Dave from Hoboken, which, as we all know or should know, the birthplace of Frank Sinatra, and me from Belleville, the birthplace of Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we start, George? Tell us how you came to be invited to that Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I assume it had something to do with Tommy, but why don't you go ahead and tell us the story?
Well, yes, it had to do with Tommy. When he got a telegram notice, he called me and told me, and I was excited about it, of course. So I said, "Is it possible for me to go? I mean, I'd love to go." And he said, "Yeah, but I only have they only gave me 4 passes." So it was him and his wife Etta, and his daughter and her husband, his daughter Darcelle and her husband. So I said, "Can we buy a ticket?" And he said, "Yeah, I can get you a ticket, but it's going to cost you some money." So this is $1990, so I guess I could look it up, of course, but let's double that at least, and it was $1,500. But I was gonna, nothing was going to stop me from going to see.
Someone wrote. I remember seeing someone write about, and now it's up to $10,000. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what I read recently.
Well, I don't know if $1,500 equals 10,000 today, but certainly with the demand, and let's put it that way, for the demand to attend these things, it's certainly 10,000.
Yeah.
But I was nothing was going to stop me from going to see my original guys, the 4 of them, back on stage.
So, based on your firsthand account, your eyewitness account, what were some of the different? Of course, we see this in the Jersey Boys play and movie about them being inducted into the Hall of Fame. The 4 of them talking and then singing Ragdoll. But tell us actually what really happened there.
No, there was there were no formal performances. That didn't happen until years later.
Yeah.
So what would happen after the inductions? What would happen is that there would be informal jam session. People would just take a mic and sing, and so that's what happened. So there were no formal performances. Now that doesn't mean that some of the inductees or past inductees that were there or presenters didn't sing some of their own songs. They did. But it was definitely definitely impromptu, no rehearsal, and some of them performed very well, and some of them did not. So I won't get into who did not.
Well, I do recall someone commenting on Simon and Garfunkel. Didn't think they did a very good job on the Boxer.
No, and then since you brought it up, the thing that I remember most was Art Garfunkel singing "Bridge Over Troubled Waters."
Yeah,
he should not have even attempted that.
Really?
That was not good.
Yeah.
But again, in all fairness, again, this was no rehearsal, and Simon and Garfunkel, hadn't performed. I guess subsequent to that, I guess they got together and did some performances. Actually, too, I can mention this. Tommy told me this later. If you recall, the year before, maybe it was '88, the Everly Brothers were inducted, and HBO asked the Everly Brothers to get back together again, and there was an HBO special with the Everly Brothers, and the same thing happened, but according to Tommy, what Tommy was going to get paid wasn't worth it. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
That's what he told me.
So the Four Seasons did not sing Ragdoll as depicted, but Frankie did sing something, right?
Yeah, everything was, like I said, informal. But it seemed to me, being in the audience, that the last song, which is on YouTube, I think you posted it, or George, I forget, posted it. And it was appropriately "Good Night, Sweetheart, Good Night," which I think is the Old Spaniels.
Right.
Yes.
Song.
I believe Anthony posted that.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I posted the audio. I could not find any video of it. I do recall in the past seeing a very short video of Frankie singing it, but I could not relocate it. I just posted the audio.
So that was, I don't know if it was rehearsed, but it was planned because there seemed to be some acknowledgement between Paul Schaefer, who he was the conductor of the band that night, who was Letterman's guy, and Frankie. So that was, I think, rehearsed, or at least planned.
Well, yeah, you can hear on the audio Paul Schaefer introducing, and he says Frankie and Dion. But if Dion was singing, I certainly didn't hear him.
No, I didn't either. Dion was there for sure.
Yeah.
All past inductees, not all, but many of the past inductees were there. The real impromptu thing was, as you remember the song, "Good Night, Sweetheart, Good Night," and then there's the bass, the bass part.
Yes.
That was, well, you hear that on the clip.
Yeah.
And that was Nick Massi.
Right.
He stepped up and he did it. Tommy and Bob were in the back with the dozens of other people kind of singing along, but there was no formal performances.
All right. How about the other part where, again, in the play, Frankie, when he gives his final sort of talk there at the end, says, "Oh yeah, we were invited up to Tommy and Nick's. They were having a party afterward. He invited Bob and I, but I didn't."
That's right.
Go. Yeah. So you have firsthand account about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. As you say, in the play, as opposed to the movie is all fakakta. As far as they got the movie has Frankie, Bob, and Nick together, and Tommy comes out of the car by himself. That's definitely not what happened. Tommy rented a suite at the where the induction was. Yeah. And
Astoria.
Waldorf Astoria. So he had a suite there. And so after the good night, sweetheart, good night, everybody came off the stage and we went back up to Tommy's room. And on the way up, Tommy said, I know you got your camera. He said, get ready because Frankie said he and Bob were coming up.
Wow.
So, I was anxiously waiting, of course, but they never came.
Never
So
came.
I don't, in the play, it's, Frankie says he got to the door a few
Right.
times. Well, I don't know if that's true, but he never came in. Let's put it that way.
Probably not. Yeah,
He never
probably
came
not.
in.
That
Probably not. No.
that
But he
had to
never
be
came in.
really, really disappointing to Tommy
Yes.
and Nikki.
Yes.
Really disappointing. Wow.
Yes. Yes.
All
So that was
right.
1990, but that
Yeah.
was, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, in addition to that, being at that ceremony, you've been at other really memorable, in my opinion, memorable concerts. You attended the reunion concert in 1980 when Frankie reunited the Four Seasons.
Yes,
They played
reunited
at
more.
they played at the Garden State Art Center in New Jersey, obviously. So maybe you might have some good anecdotes to tell us about that.
Yeah, I guess so. If you want, yeah. So I didn't know that they were recording it. I didn't know. I saw that Frankie and Co were performing at the Garden State Arts Center, which is now called the PNC after the Bank Arts Center, which is on the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey, exit 114. Anyway, so I get there was Saturday night and a Sunday night performances. So I had tickets for Saturday night. Now, if for those that have the actual album, it starts out with, and it happens to be Jerry Corbetta, who was a season for a temporary period of time,
Yeah.
of Sugarloaf fame, Green Eyed Lady fame. Anyway, so you hear him at the very beginning say, now let's hear some real hand clapping for those that have the album. So what happened was Jerry came out about 5 minutes early by himself and was talking to the audience, and he was he wanted to get and I guess it was for Gaudio, since he was the guy, he's the master sound guy, to get the right mix of the audience. So he said, okay, people on the left, please clap and applaud. People on the right do the same thing, and we were doing, in the audience, we were doing this to get the right mix, I guess. And so that, again, he finishes it. Okay, so when the rest of the guys come out, he says, okay, let's get some real hand clapping now. So they came out.
Got it. Yeah.
So it's also in the liner notes to the album. They were sort of rehearsing this with pre-shows other places, culminating at the Garden State Arts Center in New Jersey. So I think it was the week before they were playing, and I think it was at a racetrack in Philadelphia, as I
It's
recall.
Independence Mall in Philadelphia.
Okay, and it was outside, right?
Right, it was outside. Yeah,
So
unfortunately.
there was I guess a sudden thunderstorm,
Yeah.
and they got hit with thunder and lightning, I should say, and
High winds.
yeah, and actually, some of the equipment fell on Corbetta.
Yeah.
And he broke his arm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's in the liner notes. So when he was out there, talking, like as I just said, about getting the proper mix, it was clear that one of his hands, and I forget which one it was taped up. But he was able, with one hand, to play the organ to get for most of the songs. But because of the intricacy of December '63, No Water Night, he couldn't do that. So, and this is also mentioned in the liner notes to the album, Bob Gaudio, the reluctant performer, comes out to play the piano for December '63. So he came out and, he wasn't running. He was kind of walking, meandering out there. And he sits down at the piano and, he wasn't smiling, but he was a good piano
He
player.
wasn't smiling. Wow, what a surprise! He wasn't
And
smiling.
he did his thing, and the place went wild, and
Yeah.
everybody was laughing and clapping and everything. So he gets up, just like he came. He gets up and he walks off the stage. So Frankie, trying to make a big deal out of it, says, "Hey, Bob, thank you so much. Hey, great." And Bob just walks off the stage. He says, "Bob, come on out. The people want to give you some more applause. Bob, come on out. Bob, come on out. Bob, come on out. Bob." Bob never comes out. He never came out.
Bob never came out.
He
No,
never
it's not
came
on
out.
the album.
He never went up to the room, and he never came out.
He never came out. Now, what happened the next night, Sunday night, I didn't have tickets, but my former next door neighbor, the infamous Julius Benetti, he had tickets for Sunday night, and one of his buddies couldn't make it, so he asked me if I wanted to go.
Oh,
So I said, okay.
lucky.
So I go the next night, and the same thing happens. But Frankie, after having gone through that, Gaudio comes out, does his thing, goes off the stage, and Frankie just says, "Thank you, Bob." And they went into the next song, whatever that was.
I'm not going to be stood up again.
Yeah,
It really was embarrassing. The Saturday night thing with Bob, with Frankie calling him and Bob not coming out, that was embarrassing. It really was.
Okay. So that was in 1980. Earlier, actually much earlier, I guess 15 years earlier, you had been at a concert which proved to be Charlie Calello's farewell or final performance as a Four Season. And
I sent you guys the ticket for that.
You got his autograph on the invite, right?
Yeah, it's autographed.
That is this invite here, right?
That's it. That's it. December 5th, 1965. Yes, over the night, December 5th, 1965. So $3, including a chicken and a basket dinner.
Yeah, that's great.
I saw that,
and it included a chicken dinner.
That was nice.
So I was 15. So in order to get in there, I had to borrow one of my buddies from the bowling alley. I had to borrow. He was 18, so I had to borrow his draft card in order to get in.
Oh.
At that time in 65, they didn't really check that. And I could pass. I was 15, and I was as tall as I am now when I was 15. So I could pass. But
you told me
Jersey was 21.
Right. We used to go over to New York City to Greenwich Village to drink.
There you go. Oh yeah, we probably met there too. Probably. Yeah, you were the guy that was in the what was that? McSorley's Old Ale House.
Yes, McSorley's. That's where we would go to McSorley's.
Everybody went to McSorley's.
That was the Jersey hangout to go to New York.
Very interesting, guys.
Yeah. Hey, related to Charlie Calello. You told me, of course, Charlie. He's in his 80s now, but he actually performs from time to time with a band where they play, a lot of all great records he's arranged, including Four Season records. You attended one of his performances, right?
Yeah, it was about 5 years ago. I think 2020 or 19, 20, 21, something like that. And my office was in Manhattan, and it was at, I think, Birdland. Yeah. So, he could fit in, I don't know, several hundred people. It was a good crowd. It was full. And, his band, and, he did all of his hits, including there were many Four Season hits. So, again, I worked in Manhattan. So I got there a little early with one of my partners. He was a Four Seasons fan, too. So we went together. And so we got there a little early since we lived in Manhattan. And Charlie came out to tune up the band, and after he did that, I went up to him and with that card.
Yeah.
And I said,
Jesus.
So I said, Charlie, I've seen you perform before. Oh, you've been to one of my, concerts. I said, no, I saw you perform 50 years ago.
Wow.
He looked at me, what? And I showed him the card, the ticket.
Oh,
did he remember that performance?
Well, I said to him, I believe this was your last performance as a performing member of the Seasons.
Yeah.
And he shook his head. So it wasn't like he acknowledged one way or the other, but he kind of, yeah.
He still does that.
Sense. What's that?
He still does that.
He still does. So it kind of makes sense because And he mentions this in his book, right? He says something about he didn't attend the concert in North Carolina, but
Yeah, he said North
Joe Long
Carolina.
says it was either Virginia or West Virginia. And but anyway, it was before a semester break, so that class was still in session. And Joe went on live without any rehearsal. Charlie was supposed to rehearse him, and he never rehearsed him. So Joe, being the
Really?
master musician that he is, or was, God bless him, he he did tour with the fellas, and he was taking whatever kind of mental notes and doing whatever he was doing on the guitar as they were performing. He certainly was listening to the records, and he was saying Anthony knows where this is, of course, Teterboro Airport, which is next to Hackensack, New Jersey. And so Joe was on the plane because they're flying to North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, whatever they were flying to. And the limo comes up, and Tommy and Frankie and Bob get out, and there's no Charlie. So they get on the plane, and they said to Joe, "You're going on live tonight."
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And then
Baptism by fire.
And then Joe Long finishes the story by saying, he was kind of proud of himself. Things apparently went well. And he said, "Frankie, how'd I do?" Kind of excited. And Frankie said, "Yeah, you could have sang a little, could have sung a little louder."
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Welcome to the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this reference to 12 months, 18 months. No, it was 3 months.
3 months he was a
And then
performing.
Anthony, you and I saw this. George is too young. He's still a puppy. We saw this, January the 2nd,
Right.
on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah. Oh, well, George is very familiar with that. Yeah.
Oh, he didn't see
Somewhat,
it.
yeah.
We saw it live.
Yeah,
The
you guys saw it
YouTube-
live.
Yeah, we saw it right at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
January.
I remember seeing they were on TV a lot, and I think it was Clay Cole, a DJ, and he had like a Saturday, show, kind of like a Dick Clark kind of thing.
Right.
So I remember seeing, the Four Seasons, and then I saying, "Who's that short guy?" Short Italian guy.
Wow.
That's not Nick. So that was Charlie. But then the Ed Sullivan Show, who's that tall Italian guy? That's not Nick.
Musical chairs. Hey,
Yeah, really.
There's another concert which I was really interested to know that you attended, which I guess we might say it's almost an infamous concert, and that's the concert at the Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey, March 23rd, 1973. What do you remember about that? That's the famous Frankie Valli blowup.
Right? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, Passaic, New Jersey is up North Jersey, and not too far from Belleville for that matter either,
Right.
So I lived in 73. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, Hoboken. Anyway, so it's not far, 20-minute drive, 15-minute drive, whatever. Anyway, so, anytime I knew they were playing in the neighborhood, within Jersey, I would go. So I went, and it was a normal show. And at that time, in the organ player was what was his name? Bill Deloche, right?
Bill Deloche, yeah.
And Bill was a very talented guy, and not only as a player, but as a singer. So Frankie gave him a solo.
Yeah.
And I think it was "Love the One You're With."
No, it was "I Could See Clearly Now." Johnny
I Could See Clearly Now. Yes, that's it.
That was Dimitri's solo.
Oh, okay, Dimitri. Yeah, Frankie gave Dimitri some solos too.
Yeah.
So that was it. So, and Frankie then would go off stage, and I don't know, get a drink or whatever, take a break, and then come out. And then apparently, for whatever reason, Deloche didn't want to do it.
He said he had a sore throat. He said he had
a
sore throat. That's what he said.
That's what he said. But he didn't do it. And if he did have a sore throat, he should have told Frankie ahead of time.
Sure.
Yeah,
so kind of like, Frankie was unprepared for this, And I remember them, Frankie looking at him and looking at the rest of the band, and they're all kind of looking at each other, and this was going on for a couple, 3 minutes. And then finally, they came to some agreement, and then the Sherry medley came on. And that after that, Frankie was off and off the stage, and the show was over. So it was weird,
Well,
And then, of course, we read about it that you know, the Loach thing, and then Frankie fired everybody and he retired,
yes,
and you know,
Frankie fired
Oh,
everybody backstage.
he blew up.
wow.
He blew up.
Now that actually turned out to be good because uh, it was Joe Long and Dimitri Callis and Bob Gaudio eventually, within a few weeks, convinced Frankie, not to retire, not to quit, but to come
Sure.
back. And they had to Bill DeLoach did not come back. And I'm not sure actually who the drummer was at that time. I thought it was Paul Wilson, but I actually contacted Paul Wilson and he told me, no, I never was fired from any job with the Four Seasons. Frankie loved me. He wouldn't have
Oh,
fired me. So I don't know who was the drummer at the time, but whoever it was, I guess he
Well,
did get fired. He didn't retire. And it led to Jerry Pulci and Lee Shapiro being hired as the replacements, which of course
yeah.
led to the so-called new Four Seasons. Yeah,
that's
so
right.
Well, he's got, you know, what's his name, as you say, Wilson was a drummer for some period of time. You know,
yeah,
looking back, I should have taken some notes, but
yeah.
Yeah.
they were all so Wilson and who was the other guy? Al Ruzicka.
Al
He
Ruzicka,
was.
yeah.
They
They
were
came
with
They came
Dimitri.
along when Dimitri Callis joined. He
His,
brought
his,
them
his
from Baltimore,
yeah,
and they were
his band
Ah,
Flavor.
Flavor, right? They were in
Yeah,
they were in the backup band with the Four Seasons. Radzicka, although he co-wrote The Night with Bob Gaudio, he
yeah,
kind of left after only a year under suspect circumstances.
yes,
And then and they and to and I read that they promoted at that time. Wilson was thinking of leaving too, but they promoted him to a full Four Season, so he
right,
stayed.
oh,
And that
yeah,
was actually the first time there was truly a Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
for five,
Previously, it had just
interesting.
been Four
just
Seasons,
four,
including
right,
Frankie Valli. Now it was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons,
to
which
make
included
five, right.
Deloach and Paul Wilson. But I don't Wilson, even though he was promoted to a full Four Season, he did not stay much longer. I think he
I don't
left.
think so.
He left either he left in that just before that March. Yeah, it must have been just before that March 73 concert. I don't know if he was confused about the dates, but he said, no, I was never fired. Frankie loved me. I got to
Who
take him
knows? You
at his
know,
word.
there was such a turnover
Yeah.
that, you know, and then
But
of
it
all of,
turned
you
out,
know,
yeah, it turned out well for the Four Seasons. It led to the
oh
new
yeah,
Four Seasons. Let's see. Oh, how about this one? You were at a concert where, well, at that Passaic concert, you told me you heard Frankie sing Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore at that concert. And that's true because that concert is on YouTube and he obviously does sing. But I never heard him sing that at a concert.
yeah. Well, you know, like they did with all their single releases. I mean, I even heard the follow up, the Wonder Who follow up, whatever, "Sock It to Me, Baby" or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah,
The
put Sock It
Wonder,
to Me Baby in there. Yeah.
yeah, you know, so they always did whatever was current, you know, and if it was a hit, it stayed. If it wasn't, then they dropped it. And they also did some album cuts, you know,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
in addition to the hit songs. So,
So if I may ask, David, so
yeah,
throughout, let's say their 60s, I know their 70s concerts, they still performed contemporary songs of the day.
uh, only from the album cuts. It wasn't
Oh,
until the
okay.
70s that Frankie started to do the
Yeah.
songs of the day.
Got it.
Yeah.
Though
Got it.
he did in the 60s, he did do songs from his first solo album.
Okay.
He sang Secret Love. He did My Funny Valentine.
Right.
So he did In
Hey,
My Mother's Eyes.
Oh, I love
right.
all those.
This at an early concert in the 60s, I heard him sing the Hawaiian wedding song, I guess because maybe that was in an Elvis Presley movie. I don't know. What
Did
it
you
sort of
really,
came out of
Anthony?
the blue.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but not in the 70s he started to do some of the contemporary songs and I, you know, and I loved it. you know, when he would do some, because he was such a
I
great
did
singer.
too.
Yeah.
He was such
Oh,
a great
yeah.
singer.
Yeah.
Well, I got one for you that
Yeah.
I don't know if I only heard him do it once.
Right.
Love Story. The theme from
Love
Love
Story.
Story.
Yeah. Oh, gee, I never heard that. That's
It
a good
was
one.
magnificent.
I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah, no,
It's,
I've never
it's
heard that.
magnificent.
Never
You
heard
know, I
anyone
heard him
mention
do it once, and that was it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Oh, that is so interesting.
yeah,
Love
and
to
he would
hear
do,
it.
you know, and he was such a great singer. I mean, you know,
All
and
right,
then of
here's
course,
one.
you know, the audience, you know, they were there
Yeah.
principally for the hit songs. But
Right.
you know, for guys like Anthony and me, you know, I mean, this is great. You know,
I understand.
How about
I
this one
understand.
from the Half and Half album? A great song, but you never hear it sung, and that was Circles in the Sand.
oh,
You heard it, right?
oh man, did I ever? I tell you. So
And you heard the rare. I don't know if it even apparently to Ken Charmer it doesn't exist anymore, but the rare ending, the sort of spliced on ending.
yeah, you kind of can hear it, yeah, but
Wow.
it's a closing, you know, as opposed to the fade out on the record.
Right.
But in live, you can't really fade out live.
Yeah.
So the closing on the single release was what Frankie did live, and the difference, just like you know, with My Mother's Eyes, you know, there's 3 recordings of that. The first one really doesn't count because that's 1953. The 63 is so, but the 67 is great. You know, the big finish. You know, but when
Yeah.
Frankie did it live, I tell you, I mean, it was stunning, stunning. The closing was stunning, and I don't know if it was the vibe of the audience or the reverberation of the venue, but it was 1970, and I remember it was March of 1970, and Half and Half either had come out or was about to come out, and they did Patch of Blue. They did the Any
song.
Day, Oh Happy Day medley.
Right.
And I
I
distinctly
love both of
remember
those.
Joe.
Oh my God.
Distinctly remember Joe saying, "And now Frankie will perform his next single."
Yeah.
And he sang "Circles in the Sand."
Yeah.
When I
Ooh,
heard it live, I said, "That's going to be unquestionably #1 song."
a monster.
He got into, and the ending in particular, and you know, on Frankie, on the single or on the album, the recording, Frankie double tracks his voice.
Yeah.
Live in concert, Gaudio was his backup
Ah.
singer.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Okay.
interesting. Isn't
And
that?
you know, Gaudio had a nice voice. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't great. It
Sure.
was nice. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
He did.
okay. You know, he was never, you know, whether he wanted to be or not, he was never going to be a solo performer and go out there and belt a song. But you know, he had a nice voice, and so he was the backup, and Frankie sang it, and then the ending, which is yeah. You know, Frankie gets into that, and he was, you know, again, this is 1970, so it was really with the 1970 vibe, you know, with the yes, you know, and it was magnificent, absolutely magnificent, and I couldn't wait for it to come out. And then when it came out, I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
But
Really?
it was a great song, and you know, if you think of the words quickly, you know, for the masters, there are ashes and flames, glorious games, and
Yeah.
treasures that lead to pain.
Oh,
We should sing that to Putin and what he's doing in Ukraine.
That was a paid political announcement.
I'm getting paid for this. So
I
yeah,
should say
that was
unpaid
magnificent.
announcement.
Magnificent. It really was. You know, and he did. And I remember he continued to sing "Circles in the Sand" through the 70s. And I remember 1970, but you were already in college. You're a couple of years older than me, Anthony. But I remember 1970, Asbury Park Convention Hall. It was still in the act. He sang it again, and I remember Joe, who was the MC at the time, God bless him. You know, in between songs, he'd set the songs up, and he was the master of ceremonies, and he was fabulous. And
is that these pictures here?
yeah, that's it.
Ah,
yeah,
right there.
well, that's
Very good.
that's
Right on cue. Yeah.
That's the that particular thing with Frankie with the thing on his head.
Oh, the bandana.
The towel there
Yeah.
on his head. That was the
Kerchief. We call that a kerchief.
Yeah, and it was well, it's in the show, in the play. You know, I'm in the mood for love and Moody's mood for love, but it was
Right.
never done in the straight way that it's depicted in
Yeah.
Jersey Boys.
Done
It
as
Got
a
was
it.
comic.
always done as a comic bit,
Yeah, comic
and
relief.
Frankie used his Rose Murphy voice
Doing that.
Right.
to do it. What do you
Yeah.
got? Oh yeah, that's Frankie singing. You know, that's
Yeah.
the boys in action, as I would say. That's
Yeah.
the boys in action. You know,
These are
doing,
great picks, David.
you know,
Just bear
well,
with
you know,
me.
I was, I don't know, second or third row there in Convention Hall, which was great venue. Yeah, that's yeah. You could look at Tommy chasing Joe. I think what that is, Frankie was starting that I'm in the mood for love business. So it starts out, I'm in the mood for love, and then Tommy would chase Joe, and Joe would say, "Get out of here!" You know, I'm in the mood for love. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
There's another one here.
the oh yeah, so part of the I'm in the mood for love, Moody's mood for love. So this was Gaudio's contribution. So when Frankie's singing, um, Tommy does something goofy on the guitar, and then Bob hits a wrong note on the organ. So Joe goes over and he takes a piece of paper, you know, and he turns it around. He says, "Bob, you're playing the wrong note."
Wow.
So that was Bob's contribution. So
Great picks, David.
so I tell you two quick things. My sister Margaret and her husband, they didn't have any kids, two family income. So they used to go to Vegas, and they saw all the great performers: Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, Elvis. They saw them all. So they were not Four Seasons fans, but I finally convinced them to come and see the Four Seasons at Asbury Park because they lived in Hazlitt. So, okay. So they came, and after the show, they said to me they had never seen a performance, and the songs live are different than they are on record. And they said they had never seen such a great performance with comedy and singing, and then Frankie would do some solo songs since they saw the Rat Pack in Vegas.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'll give you one other one.
Interesting.
Great
So
testimonial.
one other quick one. So I think I mentioned to you, Anthony, you know, I mean, sports was my life. Not that I was good at anything except for bowling, for what it was worth. And I'll give a plug to St. Peter's College. When I was on the bowling team for 4 years, we won the state championship 3 of the 4 years.
Did
Even
you ever bowl,
Congratulations.
did you ever bowl at Brunswick Lanes?
well, actually, it was
bowling. Let's go bowling.
bowling at Brunswick, right?
There you go.
How about you?
Yeah.
But so one of the guys on the bowling team said, you know, we have such a good time bowling, and you know, we should get together at least once during the summer. So I said, well, it just so happens that every summer I go see the Four Seasons at Asbury Park. So we spent the day at, I think, first of all, we went to the racetrack, Freehold, which is closing, by the way, Anthony. And so we went to the
We always
racetrack.
went to Monmouth Race Park, Monmouth.
Okay, well, we went to Freehold anyway.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Monmouth is still there, close by, for sure, closer than Freehold. But no, well, Freehold's close to Asbury Park, you know, just west of it. Anyway, so one of the guys came. So two or three of the fellas came with the girlfriends, and you know, we knew each other's girlfriends, except for Pete. So Pete brings a new girlfriend. Okay, so and you can attest to this, Anthony. The shows, George, was so great, and the fans went nuts. And one of the
Wow.
pictures I sent you, there's Tommy holding up his finger. One more, and you know, they did 4 or 5 encores. It was incredible. So after the show, you know, I got together with my buddies. You know, we're saying goodnight to each other, and then one of my buddies comes up to me and he says, "You got to come over here." He says, "There's something wrong with Pete's girlfriend." So I go, oh, and I don't know what the hell was I supposed to do, but I go over there, okay, and she's like, she's in a trance, okay, and I don't know what I was supposed to do, you know, and I didn't want to shake her or smack her or anything, you know. I said, "You okay?"
You don't want to
Put some
do that.
cold water. Cold water always does it, right?
So after about a minute or so, she starts to come out of this trance, and she says, "I've never seen anything like this before, never in my life," and she's coming out of this thing. But that's how great the performances were, George. You had to see it. I mean, when you combine the comedy and the singing, the hit songs, and Frankie doing the solo songs, it was the shows were unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean,
remember.
aside from having hit songs, you're talking pure entertainment.
Entertainment.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember coming out of Convention Hall after a performance, and Frankie's falsetto, it was like ringing in my head. And it's, for the next couple of days, I could still hear that falsetto ringing in my head. It was
It was
amazing.
unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't touch him in the 60s or into the 70s.
Sure.
And then,
Sure.
he got older and, whatever. But he was magnificent and the fellows were great behind him. And Joe, I love Nick. Okay. And Nick was a great singer, solo singer, and, whatever musical arrangement or, vocal arrangements he did. But, I love Nick, and I don't mean any disrespect, but, Nick was a D's, Do's, and Dems guy, you know. But Joe,
Those
and
and Dems.
this is kind of a funny story. So Tommy said, when Joe joined the group, after 3 months or so, he says to Frankie in the Tommy way, he says to Frankie, "You and me, we shut up. Let him do the talking from now on."
Yeah. Yeah. Good move. Good move.
Oh, absolutely.
You being friendly with Tommy DeVito, I guess you were invited to some of his get-togethers or parties, and I remember at one time he pointed out a person, and he said, "You know who that is?" And you did recognize him. And then later you went up and talked to him. You remember that one?
Yeah, Tommy. He lived in Vegas. That's true, and but he would come back in the '90s and spend the summers in Jersey, principally to see his daughter Darcel and his two grandsons Tyler and Thomas, and he'd stay the summer. And then at the end of the summer, he would always have a going away party, and it was usually at his nephew's home. Nice backyard and everything, a pool and a cabana, and it was really very nice. Okay, so we're mingling with everybody, and Joe comes up to me and he says, "You should go over and talk to that guy." Who's that? I never didn't recognize him. He says, "You probably know the name. That's Chubby Cifelli." Well, I didn't know Chubby, but I knew Cifelli. I said, "Is that the Tell It to the Rain guy?" He said, "Yeah." "Oh, yeah, I'll go talk to him." So I go over, and I think he was surprised that somebody actually would know who he was. And I said, "Yeah, Tell It to the Rain." I said, I "You know something?" I said, "The other song that you wrote," I said, "It's magnificent. Fox in a Bush."
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
when I told him that. I mean, he was surprised that I knew who he was, number one. But when I told him one of my favorite songs is "Fox in a Bush," his face just lit up. So I don't know what I didn't sing. I sang the words. Beneath shabby clothes and a bearded face. And then he started to come in. Later, there was a proud man called Fox in the Bush. He would never accept charity from it. So he and I are
love it
together.
I love it.
I posted. I think I posted this story, or maybe I told it on an interview that I also had a fox in a bush story, and back in I think 68. Probably it was in 68 that a friend of mine, we were aspiring songwriters, and we would go along trying to get people to listen to our songs. And fortunately, the Newark Belleville area, there were a lot of performers, including right in Belleville, Mike Petrillo, who was Chubby Cifelli's songwriting partner. So we went and knocked on Mike's door, and his mother answered and actually let us in. Called Mike.
Not today.
This was 1968. People today won't let strangers who knock on their doors into their house. But in 68 in Belleville, New Jersey, she did. She called Mikey. Mikey was upstairs sleeping because he came down. He looked like he had his pajamas on. His hair was all messed up. But he was kind enough, and he took us downstairs to where he wrote songs. And he invited us back, and we would, every once in a while we would go there. He would listen to our songs. But one day he said, "Oh, I want to play a song for you." And he did. And he sat down at the piano and he played and sang Fox in a Bush. and he said, "Yeah, I just wrote this song. Me and Chubby just wrote it. He said it's based on a true story." And he said, "And Frankie's going to record it." I said, "Yeah, it's a very good song. I really like it." Well, several weeks later, I'm in my living room and I'm watching TV, the Mike Douglas
Mike
show,
Douglas. Yep.
and,
Oh,
and Frankie is his guest, and he comes on and he sings "Fox in a Bush." So the next time I saw Mike Petrillo, I said, "Oh, I saw Frankie on Mike Douglas. He sang your song." So
Anthony,
Who's the
that is
co-host
such a cool story.
Who was
yeah,
the co-host that
Oh
week?
my God.
Anthony,
yeah.
who was the co-host of Mike Douglas show that week?
Well, Richard Harris was on
Yeah.
the show, and Mike Petrillo told me that Richard Harris asked Frankie if he could have the song, if he could buy the song, because he wanted to record it.
As the
I never
follow-up
heard,
to, yeah.
yeah, I never heard Richard Harris record it, and I subsequently found out from either I think it was actually Chubby Cefelli's son, told me that they never were able to work out a deal for Harris to record it. So
Yeah, he
it,
wanted to do that as a follow-up to MacArthur's Park.
yeah, it would have been a great follow-up to
Oh,
MacArthur's
yeah,
Park.
it would
Yeah.
have. But Frankie did a magnificent job on it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Magnificent.
We have the same. I'm
All
sorry.
right. How about, do you have any Joe Long stories? We don't want to ignore Joe Long,
Oh,
like the
well,
Hall of Fame did.
well, yeah. Well, I did attend. Joe did was included in the New Jersey Hall of Fame. He was included in the New Jersey Hall of Fame. So,
Right.
and the New Jersey Hall of Fame presentation or induction was at the Paramount Theater. And where was that? Asbury Park, right
Park.
next
Yeah, on
to
the boardwalk.
Convention Hall. But it was a theater,
Right,
1,000,
right. Yeah,
1,500 people.
when
So
when it would rain out, when you couldn't go to the pool, we would we would go to the Paramount Theater and watch the movie.
it's a movie. But
Yeah.
so he was there, and he was so happy and so proud, as he should be, and he should have been in the Hall of Fame for sure. But
Yeah.
it's and I became very friendly with Joe. Joe was over the house many times, and God bless Joe. I remember one time Joe called me. And Joe lived in Long Branch, which is like 10 minutes from where I live here down the Jersey Shore, and me. And he's got an album and he wants me to sign it. So he's gonna buy me lunch at this diner, which is forget that I don't know if
Max Embers. Was it Max Embers?
no, actually it was the Four Seasons Diner. And
Oh,
it's on 36.
yeah, yeah.
And so I met him there and I got a free lunch out of the deal. But Joe would actually, if you call Joe and he'd go. I mean, what a wonderful person Joe was. Oh, I can't. And then, if you don't know him personally, you know who wrote the liner notes to Jersey Boys CD? Charles Alexander.
Yeah.
So Charles has this group of super fans like us, which he calls the Elders. And there was Frank Rovello, recently departed, who had the Genuine Imitation Life Gazette, I don't know, podcast, whatever it was. And
yeah, Facebook a page.
Yeah. And
I think you froze there.
Yep.
And then you know him, and then Krez Capici and John Cotterfeld. And so they just called Joe years and years ago, going back to 1990 or something like that, and Joe would meet with them. So then, because it was Jersey, then through Jersey Boys, I met Charles, and then we'd meet in my backyard, whether it was up north or now that I'm retired, back down here, and down the shore. So, and Joe would attend. I sent you a picture with Charles and Joe and Johnny Hornsby, and God bless him. What a wonderful person, and sharp and smart and quick. And then Joe became a musical consultant to a group called the Jersey Four, which is a Four Seasons cover band. And every once in a while, Joe would get up and do a couple of songs with them. But he'd become, their musical consultant, if you will. And he did record a song with them, and which he co-wrote with Saccone and Shapiro and Polchi. I Wonder Why. So the Jersey Four, you can hear Frank. It's on YouTube. Frankie does it, and it's a great song.
Yeah,
And
it is.
so the four Jersey Four has covered it and does a good job. And you can hear Joe on it. He does the bass parts, and God bless him. And then I pick up. Joe didn't like to drive at night, so if we were to go to a Jersey Four concert or show, I'd pick him up, and then we'd go to the show. So one of the shows, and Anthony would know this, that the Jersey Four appeared was in Seaside Heights. I forget the name of the venue, but anyway, it was a nightclub kind of thing. So
the Chatterbox.
I don't know, could have been. Anyway, so after the show, we're going back home, and I took my son with us, and he loved Christopher, he really did, and Christopher loved him too. Anyway, so
nice.
Coming back home, and Joe, he was kidding around with everybody, and he was giving me the razz about something or other, So I said, Joe, if you don't, and I should have known better, So I said, Joe, if you don't leave me alone, I'm going to drop you off at the next train station. He said, good. He said, I'll get home quicker that way. Because he was criticizing my driving. So I should know better than try to trade quips with Joe Long.
So Dave, you knew Joe Long pretty well, right? From what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, through Tommy,
Yeah.
And Joe was so friendly, it was a natural, it just, and then again, when, particularly when I moved down the shore, Long Branch and, Seagirt, close by, and going to these Jersey Four shows. And, Joe was over the house many times for dinner.
Oh, nice.
When we'd go for lunch, and
I'll just put in a little plug here. They restored the I Wonder Why, and it's in the box set. There's a improved version in the box set.
It's on YouTube. It's not the improved version, but for those listeners, you got to hear this song. It is fabulous. Motown was, I don't know what they were thinking, but that should have been the release.
They weren't.
Hit song.
They lost it. They lost the tape.
Yeah.
It truly was a lost song.
Yeah. Well, and I'll mention this, that I think I sent you pictures too. I've got I live in the 60s, right? So I got a classic car, 1965 Buick Riviera.
Oh.
So, I sent you pictures, and with Joe, because one of the shows, the classic car show, there were lots of them during the summer. Every week there's a show, or more than one. And anyway, so it was in Long Branch, and Joe came, and we took a picture in front of it, and so he'd come to the car shows, and I went to a car show not with Joe when I lived up north, Hasbrook Heights. Anyway, Anthony knows where these places are. Anyway, so I went to Paramus. There was a car show in Paramus, and and there's dozens, if not hundreds, of cars. And, from the 50s and 60s and 70s. And, I'm walking around looking at all the cars, and I see this one. And then when you go to these shows, it costs you 10, 15, 20 bucks, and they give you a card. And usually they give out trophies afterwards and, People's Choice Awards and that kind of thing. So the owner of the car has his name on it, right? So I go past this one car, convertible, 1956 Cadillac convertible.
Oh.
Pink. So, wow, what a car this is, So I look at, the card. Tom Austin.
Yeah.
Tom Austin.
Oh.
So I go up to the guy. I said, are you
the Tom Austin?
Yeah. So I sent you a picture of me and him in front of his car, in front of my car.
Tom Austin of the original Royal Teens, who wrote Short Shorts with Bob Gaudio. Yeah. I think he still has that car because they put out a CD a couple of summers ago, and I think that
car's in the picture.
In the picture, yeah.
That's a car. I mean, I like my 65 Buick Riviera, but this is even 10 years older.
How about I don't know if I dreamed this, but I remember, Frankie lived in Stephen Crane Village, and my grandmother lived in Stephen Crane Village. And I was there one day with this friend of mine, and this Riviera goes by, and I swear Frankie Valli was driving the car. And I said, "Was that Frankie Valli in that Riviera?" And my friend said, "Oh, yeah. VJ gave that to him as a gift for when they sold 2 million records, with Sherry."
Really?
Yeah, I've never heard anyone else say that or
No,
mention
never heard
it,
it.
but that was it. Whether that was a true story or not, I don't know.
And I think the Riviera came out in 64, 65, or was it 63?
Riviera came out in 63.
63. There
Yeah,
we
it was
go.
So
It
the
was
first generation is 63, 4, and 5. The
Yeah,
difference with the
it was the
65
first-
is got the hidden headlights.
Got
right.
it.
It was the first year it came out. It
Got
looked very strange, very odd.
Oh,
Sort
it
of
was different.
the
Much
first
Those,
month.
those
So-
first generations, that is a sporty look. I mean, you see that coming, you get out of the way. It's a
But,
beauty.
if the Buick is big, Tom Austin's car was even bigger. It would not fit in my garage. I'm lucky I
Yeah.
can get the Riviera in my garage,
Yeah.
but not the Cadillac.
Yeah.
That was just too big. But Tom's a very nice fellow.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, no, that was nice. Well, Anthony, do you have anything else? We've already been into about a good hour and a half?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, a little over an hour. I have 3:13. A little over an hour, but
Well,
yeah.
I got one more if I
haven't-
can. I got
Yeah,
one more
go ahead.
story if I can.
Oh, you're right, Anthony. You're right.
So
Go ahead, David.
Can I do this one more
Please,
story?
please,
So,
of course.
Story. One more.
I mean-
One more. Get up a finger.
Yes, right.
One more.
Yes.
encore. So in 2000, Jersey Boys, November 6, 2005, I think. Anyway, so fortunately, I was at the opening show and the closing show. Anyway, but I've lost
And
track.
here's your ticket for the opening show, right?
Oh yeah, that's it. November 6th, 2000. I got it right.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
then there
that's
was
the
another-
closing show.
That's the closing show.
Love it.
It's now 2007, summer of 2007. And, after a while, I don't know, I'm not a Broadway guy, but, I mean, the original cast, I guess they sign up for a year or a year and a half or 2 years or whatever. And then they re-sign or go on to something else. Anyway, a lot of Jersey Boys, a lot of people became fans because of Jersey Boys. I mean, everybody knew who the Four Seasons were.
I agree.
But, and I was telling Anthony, I don't know, George, if you're, there's this one woman, I think I met her once, but I'm not sure. She lives in Manhattan and she would go to Broadway shows once a week. And she had no desire to see Jersey Boys, but I guess she had seen every show on Broadway. So she finally goes to see Jersey Boys. She fell in love with the show so much that she has seen the show over 400 times.
Oh my God.
And, I know people who have seen the show over 100 times.
Yes, I sat next to that lady once. She
You
told me she had seen it over 400 times. I thought
Did
she
you,
was
Anthony?
joking.
So there's a super fan. Her name is Irene Eisen, Eizen. And so and you got to give a lot of credit to, I think, the popularity of Jersey Boys. I think you got to give a lot of credit to the original cast because they were so friendly. After the show, they'd come outside and they would meet with the fans and they would talk to the fans outside, and they were very nice. And they would do shows, even before the Midtown Men, which was their group afterwards.
Yeah.
And they would, Daniel Reichert would do a Christmas show. He still does. Every Christmas he does a show. And Christian did some shows, and he did a book. And he was the voice in the book. And and certainly John Lloyd Young goes on tour, still to this day. But anyway, what she wanted to do was she wanted to have a like a tribute to the original cast of Jersey Boys. So she contacts, I think her husband is an attorney, I think. So he contacts the producers, the Dodgers, and says, okay, we'd like to have this party. So the Dodgers said,
Was
only
David, was this for the 20th anniversary?
no.
No,
This was
no.
19. This would have been
2007.
2007.
Got it. Okay.
We can
Got
talk
it.
about the 20th anniversary, but
Got
this
it.
is 2007.
Got it. Go ahead.
So she says, so the Dodgers get back and said, oh, okay, if you can do it, if you get a sponsor and you can wrap it around for a charity. So Irene calls, and I met her a few times at some venues. And so she calls Charles Alexander and me, and we meet for lunch. And, she's telling us what I'm telling you. And, okay, well, so I said, I could probably get my firm to be the sponsor. And then Charles says in the conversation, wouldn't it be something if we could get the Four Seasons to show at the same
God.
At this tribute? So we know that Charles knew Bob Gaudio. Of course, Bob asked him to write the liner notes. And Charles, back in 1986, did an article about the handshake, and that was in Time magazine. Charles was a senior editor at Time magazine. So he called Bob. Bob said okay, and I called Tommy, and this was in October. So Tommy usually left at the end of the summer to go back to Vegas. So I asked Tommy about it, and Tommy said, okay, I'll stay an extra week or two, just for this, because it's for charity. So Tommy agreed to go. And as divine intervention would have it, Frankie was giving a performance the following week at the Morristown. Again, you don't know these places, George, but Morristown, New Jersey, okay, Morristown Performing Arts Center, not too far from Manhattan, maybe 45 minutes. So he was in the neighborhood. So I don't know if it was Charles or me called Joe, and Joe said yes. So not only did we get the original cast of Jersey Boys, but we got the Four Seasons.
Wow.
Frankie and Tommy. And I sent you some pictures. And they all were there, and we set up an autograph table. And I got my firm to sponsor it. And $250 a ticket. And we raised $40,000 for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS.
Oh, that was great, David.
So it was quite a night indeed. Quite a night. I sent you some pictures, and
I've seen pictures of that event also. Yes.
Yeah. They've been on YouTube quite a bit.
So then you mentioned the 2020. Yeah, I was recruited for that one too, and that was nice. It wasn't as big as the 2007 event.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And it was 20 years from the La Jolla opening.
Right, the La Jolla opening, yeah. Yeah, so, I remember, Gia Doxey was sort of promoting that.
Yeah.
Did none of the Four Seasons were there, though?
No. Rick Ellis, Daniel Reichert showed, Bobby Spencer showed, and you know who was the special guest? David Noronha.
Is that right? Really? David Noronha. Whatever happened to him?
Well, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. But he did, he was the original Frankie Valli at La Jolla, right?
La Jolla, yep.
And then when they said they were going to come to New York to Broadway, he didn't want to come. That's what I heard.
He didn't come.
Yeah.
He was something of an established star already, so he had other things in the works.
Well, I wouldn't say he was an established star.
Well, he had things in the works anyway.
He was, I guess he was up for a role in a TV series, and I guess he thought that had a better shot than coming to New York for a Broadway play. But obviously, he probably regrets that decision.
I would think, but he showed up with his wife, and it was very nice. He was a nice fellow, very nice gentleman. So it was a nice event. It wasn't as big as the 2007 thing, but Dodgers gave us a left-handed okay on it. But they're planning a 20th Broadway party. So
they are.
So keep
Oh,
your
so
eyes out for that
you
one.
scoop them. You scoop them.
Well, but that's why I said they kind of gave us a left hand okay for the 20th.
Well, that would be
La Jolla
this November. So this coming November, they'll have a 20th anniversary.
I think that's what they said. So that
Yeah.
they put
which
their promotion behind it. That's probably going to be a big deal.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's going to be a much bigger deal.
Yeah. So
You
we
would
got to
think.
get you out here, George.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to get out there, David. I
And
would
you can
love
stay.
to, Dave.
We got the house down the Jersey Shore. Come on down. You can stay with us. We're a mile from the beach.
You are very kind, Dave. Very kind. Very kind.
Hey, George, are you planning to attend the February 1st Lifetime Achievement Award?
That's Saturday, and I'm gonna try to get down there.
Oh,
I'm
good.
gonna leave here around 3-4 o'clock, and I'm just gonna hang out to see if I catch Frankie Valli, just to get a picture, an autograph, something.
Like at the Walk of Fame there.
Like a Walk of Fame, exactly. And I'm wondering if Mr. Gaudio will join him for the Grammy.
I wouldn't bet on it. He didn't show up. He doesn't show up, right? He didn't show up for the Walk of Fame.
Dave.
He didn't show up for his bow, and he didn't go up to the hotel room.
Dave, this may sound a little crazy, but it's the truth. The evening of the Walk of Fame, the eve of the Walk of Fame, I had trouble sleeping that night because a dream of mine is to meet Bob Gaudio.
Really?
I need to meet Bob Gaudio. Bob Gaudio is my Paul McCartney. Bob Gaudio is my Brian Wilson.
All right.
Well, he is,
Well,
period.
You know what they say about meeting your heroes.
I think I sent you a picture of Tommy and me and Bob Gaudio. I think I sent you a picture of that. Quick. So I went to, I never made it to La Jolla. I wanted to go, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't know Charles at the time, and I didn't know anybody. So, quick aside, I called Tommy, and Tommy had told me that this thing had been in the works for years, Jersey Boys. So finally, it's coming to reality, and it's opening in San Diego, so at La Jolla. So so I didn't know Charles or anybody else, and our two youngest kids were really young, so we just didn't leave them,
Right.
And, my Lynette, she likes the Four Seasons, but enough is enough. And she certainly met Joe and Tommy, and and she loves them, and they loved her. But so I called Tommy. I said, Tommy, if you're going to go to this thing in La Jolla, I'll fly out. So I had somebody to go with. So he says to me, unless you can get out here tomorrow, he says, I'm going.
Oh.
So he says, yeah. Joe called Joe, as in Pesci, and Joe. He went with Joe to La Jolla. And
really?
I couldn't get away. I had to work for a living.
Yeah, of course.
I couldn't go. All right. I couldn't, the next day, I couldn't go.
Oh.
And there's a story to that. And it's not, not only did Tommy tell me this, but in an interview that Rick Ellis gave, Rick Ellis confirmed it, that when Joe Pesci saw it in La Jolla, and he saw how he was depicted, he was livid pissed. Because he comes away as a kind of like, a hanger-oner, a little wise-ass kid.
Oh, that Joe Pesci was upset.
Yeah, Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Not Tommy, Joe Pesci.
Yeah, like an irritant, just hanging on.
So they go backstage, and Pesci is threatening everybody. Marshall Brickman, Rick Ellis, he's threatening everybody that he's going to sue them. You never got my permission, that. And then Rick Ellis ends the story by saying, well, we gave him a piece of the show and everything's fine.
Well,
really?
Well, this is sort of common knowledge too. The one who was really upset about how he was depicted was Bob Crewe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
in other words, Bob Crewe was not that flamboyant?
No, not at all.
No.
No.
Not, I met Bob a few times. He was never
Oh, did you
flamboyant.
really?
I don't know him that well. I don't know, half a dozen times I met him.
Hmm.
I mean, the first time I met Bob Crewe, Anthony, probably 71 or 72 at Convention Hall in Asbury Park. Nobody
Wow.
knew who he was. He's standing in the back there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I went up to him and I said, hey, hi, Bob. I know who you are. You're a big fan, et cetera, et cetera. I said, where's Tommy? So he was the one who told me that Tommy was in Las Vegas.
Oh,
You're right. Yeah, you got it right from the horse's mouth. Yeah.
I'll wrap it up and I promise this is it. So speaking of Vegas,
interesting.
I mentioned my sister Margaret, who was just raved about what a great show they put out. Anyway, as most of my family, they all worked in Hoboken. In Hoboken, this was before it became the 6th borough of New York City. And it was a working class neighborhood, and the movie On the Waterfront was shot there, so you can't get any more working class than that. My father was a longshoreman. I wasn't a longshoreman, but I worked on the piers. I was the gopher, go for this, go for lunch, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And anyway, so when they worked in a factory, they had Hoboken had Maxwell House, they had Standard Brands, Tootsie Rolls used to be made in Hoboken. Bethlehem Steel was in Hoboken. So all these places before, it became the in spot to be. So instead of, now I'm working for a living. So instead of, my my vacations were Seaside Heights, or I joined Bobby Wright in Wildwood. That was the extent of it. That was the extent of my vacation.
Yeah.
But after, my sister and her husband lose their job, okay, because the factory closed, they moved to Vegas because they loved it. And, jobs were plentiful out there. He worked at the airport. She got a job as a maid at one of the hotels. I forget which one. So
good for them.
And I'd fly out to Vegas. So, I got Tommy's number, without getting in, long story short, I got Tommy's number. So I called him and he met with me.
Wow.
So he says, you're from Hoboken. I said, oh, my sister owns a house or a building in Hoboken, right on Washington Street, which is the main street in Hoboken.
Yeah.
So what's kind of funny, it was as most of the buildings on Washington Street, there's a storefront of some kind. So her storefront was a barbershop, which is the one I used to go to.
Wow.
It would have been funny if I'm coming out of the barbershop and Tommy's coming to visit his sister.
Yeah, really.
It never happened. But what Tommy said, he told me, he says, when I used to visit my sister, he says, this is what I miss in Vegas. He says, I miss the Italian cold cuts and the fresh mutts, the mozzarella.
Yeah.
I says, I miss that. They don't do it good out here. So the next year, I'm going out again. So I have the number. So I called him. I said, do you want me to stop at Fiore's? He says, yeah. So he gives me a list of things to get. And again, this is like $1977. So I mean, it wound up costing me like $50. The fresh mutts, gotta get the fresh mutts.
That's expensive.
For those that are not Italian or of honorary Italian descent, Anthony gives us the honorary Italian descent.
Yeah.
So he gives me the order, and I get the fresh mutts, the prosciutto, the capicola, the supersad, the Genoa salami. It had to be Genoa salami, not regular salami. Genoa salami.
Oh,
so in those days, you could put it in a bag, and you could put dry ice in it.
Right.
Yes. Before they barred it, to be on a plane. And then I stopped at the Italian bakery and I got Italian bread. So I called Tommy and I told him I was coming out, and I told him the day, and I said, oh, I'll get I'm getting a 9 o'clock flight. I arrive there. I'll take a cab to my sister's, and they're going to leave me the car, and then I'll bring it to your house. Okay, good. So I get off the plane. Okay. And this was when you could come, there wasn't security, you didn't need a ticket. So I get off the plane. Who's waiting for me? Tommy DeVito.
Oh my God.
He says, "Come on, man." He says, "We gotta go. I got a bunch of people waiting for this."
I got to get that fresh notes.
So he
So
said, "You
you
got a
were in
bag?"
charge.
I
So
said,
Dave,
"Yeah." He
you were
says,
in
"Come on, we
charge
got
of
to
the
get this
party
thing. We
platter.
gotta go. We
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
go."
that was, yeah, yeah.
So we wanted. I forget now if we went to his house or one of his friends' houses. So I get in there, and there's like 25 people there,
Wow.
and they all said, "It's about time," you know. And
He
they
didn't
loved
ask you to,
everything. And the
he didn't
Italian
ask
bread
you
was
to,
great, and
yeah,
Marie's Bakery in Hoboken, and which is closed
yeah.
now, unfortunately. And that's why I've been overweight all these years. And
Oh my God.
so that's the. I mean, I got so many stories. We could go on for days, but we'll cut
Yeah.
it there. And
Well,
God bless. God
uh,
bless you, George.
Dave, thank you very much. You have shared so much. I'm hoping whenever you have time, we can do a part two. I still need to do a part two with Anthony. Let me see if this is still. Oh yeah, no, it's recording. But just thank you very much, Dave. I
Oh,
really
sure.
appreciate your time.
Yes.
Anthony, any closing comments, and we'll leave
No,
it
no,
there with you.
I want to thank David as well. That was a bravo performance. Yeah, we just were talking about your firsthand accounts, eyewitness account at the Hall of Fame, but you gave us many eyewitness accounts, firsthand accounts. So we certainly thank you. It was very informative and very entertaining.
Well,
Very.
you know, especially for a boring CPA.
Oh Jesus Christ! I mean, I got two high level professions here. I'm honored, and I mean that. You gentlemen
And
take care, okay?
we'll keep in touch, David.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my two new best friends.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Take care now. Bye.
very
Bye bye.
good.